friends, it's Shereé, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing a pattern review of KnowMe pattern ME2001 by Beauty J'adore. I'm really excited to bring you this pattern review. I actually sewed this up last week, and I've actually done some other sewing as well, but I wanted to make sure that I did this pattern review as soon as possible as we are finally in winter and it's actually cold enough to wear a coat in most places. So before I get into this review, if you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you are a returning person, thank you so much for your continued support. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to start out by giving you an overview of the pattern, and I will put the pattern on the screen so that you can have an up-close view. This pattern comes with two views. There is view A, which is the view that I made, and it's an oversized lined coat with belts, wide lapel, notched collar, and side seam pockets. And then there is view B, which I did not make, and that is a lovely pair of slacks. Now, I might make them in the future. However, at this time, I don't actually need any slacks in my wardrobe. So I just made the coat, and I'm really excited about this coat because I've wanted a nice coat for a long time. However, I'm allergic to wool, and the majority of the time when I fall in love with a coat that is ready to wear, it is wool. So I was really excited to finally find an alternative to that fabric in order to make my own coat, which I actually take a lot of pride in wearing, and I have been wearing a lot over the last 2 weeks. The rating for this pattern is average, and I agree with that 100%. However, I do want to say if you are a beginner that has sewn a few garments and you are confident and you have the time to really just take your time on this project, I think that you can also sew this coat. There aren't any buttonholes, there aren't any zippers or anything like that. So really, I think that a beginner could probably make this so long as they don't rush through the process and they take their time, especially since this particular pattern has a very lengthy sew along on YouTube. I did not follow along with the sew along. Generally, when I do pattern reviews, I like to try to see if I can follow the instructions on the pattern to create the garment without issue on my own so that I can tell you whether or not I found the instructions to be very clear to understand. However, in an occasion where there might be a step or two that confuses me, I might reference back to a sew along. So I do appreciate all patterns having a sew along, especially for those of us that went through the school of YouTube and taught ourselves to sew by watching YouTube videos. So I definitely love that they have that as a part of the KnowMe patterns and quite a few of the Simplicity and McCall patterns. So if you are new to sewing and you are eager to make a coat and follow along with a step-by-step tutorial, it is available to you on YouTube. All right, so this pattern has 12 pattern pieces, including the lining pieces. The size range for this pattern is pretty wide. On the back of this pattern, it says that it goes from a size 10 all the way to a size women's 38, which is great. The size 10 measurement is a 32.5 bust, 25 waist, and a 34.5 hip. The women's 38 is a 60 bust, a 56.5 waist, and a 62 hip. I chose to make the size 16, which is a 38 bust, a 30 waist, and a 40 hip. Now, with this particular view, the coat, I used 3 3/4 yards of red brushed polyester wool. What is polyester wool? It is faux wool. So if you look at the coat, it looks like it is wool. When you touch the coat, you can tell it's not wool. Even up close, if you are someone who appreciates a good heavy-duty wool fabric, you can see up close that it is not made from wool. However, this is a very warm coat, and I did purchase my fabric from Fabric Wholesale Direct, and they had lots of other color options available. I think if I make this coat again, I will go for the camel color or caramel color because I have a really wonderful coat that's oversized, beautiful, everything I want it to be that my husband bought me about 5 years ago, and I don't ever wear it because it makes me itchy. Even with the lining and the fact that it isn't 100% wool, it is a blend coat, it makes me itchy, and so I really wish I could wear it. And now that I've made this one, I think at some point I might go ahead and purchase more of this fabric to go ahead and make a caramel or camel colored version. A really cool thing about purchasing this fabric from Fabric Wholesale Direct is that I had been racking up all of my shopping rewards. So every time you place an order with Fabric Wholesale Direct, they do give you a credit to your account and you accumulate points, which then you can cash in towards future purchases. So I had $25 racked up and I was able to apply it to this purchase. So I was really excited to be able to purchase this for around $30. And that is an amazing deal. And so I'm really excited about that. Now for the lining, I actually used 3 yards of a red silky charmeuse fabric that I got from Joann, and that is a polyester fabric, and I'll show you what that looks like. It is bright, sexy red, and it's gorgeous. It actually sewed up really nicely. I enjoyed using that fabric, and I probably will purchase more of that fabric in the future. I think that fabric would be really gorgeous as a dress, but it worked out really nicely for this jacket and it made it feel very luxurious on the body. So I'm really pleased about that. And when I purchased that, it was actually 30% off at Joann's. I believe I got it the day after Christmas, and I used my teacher discount, which is an additional 15% off of sale items. So that was really great. So all in all, the total cost for this coat was $75. Now I'm going to insert a little run through screen recording of some of my Pinterest ideas that I had when I was trying to determine which pattern I wanted to use and which fabric I wanted to use and which style I wanted in a red coat. I definitely found lots of beautiful versions on Pinterest, and you can see as it's rolling on the screen the different styles, and those coats all range from about $175 to up to $2,000 for this type of coat. So I'm really pleased to have sewn my version, which may not be as high-end looking as some of those other versions, but definitely fits my lifestyle for around $75. Really great deal. Let's talk about the instructions for this pattern. I found these instructions to be very easy to follow and clear to understand. There was no confusion as I went through the steps in this pattern. I did take my time. I really focused on making sure that I understood each step before moving on to actually completing that step. And I found it enjoyable to sew. I really enjoyed making this coat. And a lot of times when it comes to bigger projects like jackets and coats, I get nervous and I have a little extra anxiety. So I definitely wanted to make sure that when I went into this project that I had a positive attitude. I told myself this is going to be the best coat you've ever made. And guess what, friends? It's the only real coat that I've ever made. I did make a quilted Ilford jacket, but it's a different vibe completely to this coat. Anyway, I just told myself this was going to be a successful project, and I took my time reading each of the steps before completing them, not skipping things, not saying, oh, I know how to do that, or oh, I know how to do that, I don't have to read the instructions, because I have been guilty of doing that, my friends. But for this project, I took my time step by step. I did a really good job. There was no hangups, no issues of any kind that required me to unpick or start over, and so I'm really pleased about that. Now, it did take me a long time because I took my time sewing this project, and coats are a little bit more involved, especially since this one is a lined coat. And so it took me about 7 to 8 hours total to sew it up, split over 2 days. That does not include the time that I spent cutting the pieces out, okay? I cut the pieces out on a totally different day, and I did not time how long it took, but it did take a while because you had the exterior coat pieces as well as the lining pieces to cut out. But this time around, I used my cutting table instead of cutting on the floor. A lot of times I just don't want to take the time to set up my sew station, and so I find myself throwing out the mats on the floor and cutting on the floor like I used to do before I had a cutting table, which is ridiculous. So this time around, I was completely set up. I was on Christmas break, so my classroom was set up as a sewing room the entire week, and so I was able to go ahead and cut out the pieces more efficiently by using my cutting table. And yeah, so I definitely did not keep track of the time when I was cutting the pieces out. However, the sewing did take 7 to 8 hours total to complete the jacket. I did have one issue with the sewing project that had nothing to do with the instructions. It had nothing to do with the pattern pieces themselves. It did have something to do, however, with my fabric, and I guess the way that I pressed my fabric, I'm not quite sure. but one side of the lining of my jacket was longer than the other side, and I did not realize that until I got to the step where you attach the lining to the exterior shell of the jacket. And so basically what that meant is that one side of my lining actually went all the way down to the hem of the coat, while on the other side it was much, much shorter. So in order to fix that issue, I had to unpick just a tiny bit of where the lining connected to the exterior of the jacket. And then I shortened my lining to make it even all the way across. I re-hemmed it and then re-stitched it into the facing of the jacket. So it was kind of annoying that I did that. I'm still not sure how I ended up with one side longer than the other, but it was definitely an easy fix. In the moment, I was really tired and frustrated, and I was like, what am I gonna do now? I'm gonna have to shorten the entire coat and all this mess I had come up with in my mind, when really it was just as easy as unstitching a little bit and fixing it and then restitching it back up. So it was a minor fix, but on a rested mind, it was able to come to my mind a little quicker on how to fix it. I just wanted it to be perfect, and because it was such an enjoyable sewing project and I had made it all the way to the end, I was just devastated when I realized I'd have to do an additional step. So that was a little bit of an annoyance, but I got through it. One issue that I have with this fabric that I chose to make this jacket is that for some reason, even though this coat has been pressed several times, there are parts of the jacket that just look unfinished. They look a little wrinkled, or maybe there's just a wave in the fabric, and it is just simply the way the fabric is. It has nothing to do with the way that it was sewed, and I'll press it and it'll look perfect, and then after I move around and wear it, I find that those waves and wrinkles come back. It's a little bit annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. But for me, it kind of sets it apart, and so that it no longer looks like it is maybe ready to wear, but more like it's homemade up close, because there's just something that's a little less refined about it than what I wanted it to be. Another thing is that I find that sometimes the lapel lays different on the front of the jacket, and the inner part of this facing kind of rolls out more instead of staying tucked inside. And again, I don't know if it's something that I've done or if it is simply just because of the type of fabric that I used. It's not a big deal, but sometimes I find myself tugging at it and it kind of gets on my nerves. This jacket was really nice and easy to put together. I do like the collar of this jacket a lot. I wasn't sure if this was in the instructions or not. It's again a lot like how I constructed that blazer, how I thought it was interesting that the top of the blazer collar and the under collar were not attached to each other, so you could kind of pull them apart. If you saw my review of that blazer, then you know what I'm talking about. So this time around, I went ahead and tacked it. So now my under collar and the outer collar are tacked in that side seam. It's not visible from the outside. I stitched in the ditch, but now it has a more structured collar and it stays folded down nicely. This is the back of the coat. I want to talk to you a bit about the sizing for this coat. It is extremely oversized. Now I'm kind of short. I am 5'4", and I know that some of my friends here on YouTube are shorter than I am, so this is an important note for you. This was drafted for someone much taller than us, friends. If you look at the cover of the pattern, it kind of cuts off mid-shin on Nikki, the designer of the pattern. And so I assumed that that's how it would fit on me. However, it is much longer than that on my body, and you will see that in pictures. I might actually take this off my mannequin and put it on for you in this video so that you can see what I'm talking about. So that's one issue that I found, is that it's a bit longer in the arms and in the body than it is on Nikki in the photo. However, I will say this, I have very long arms in general, so a long sleeve coat is actually really nice for me. Even though I'm short, I have a short torso and very long legs and arms. So a long sleeved anything is not a problem for me. The other thing that I had a slight issue with regards to the sizing is that the placement of the belt loops seem a bit low for someone like me that has a short torso. I almost wish that I had put my belt loops higher so that the belt could be tied at my natural waist, because right now when it's tied, it's lower than my waist. So it's actually like where if you're not wearing like high-waisted jeans, it's where the top of your waistband would be. And it's not an issue, but it's definitely not how I envisioned it fitting. But since it's an oversized coat, I think I can get away with it. I've been wearing it like crazy and no one has said anything to me. Now, while this jacket is extremely bright in color and kind of in your face, because I mean, it's red, I did not find that it was one of those items in my closet that stopped traffic or got a lot of attention when I wore it. And sometimes I'm looking for that and sometimes I'm not. So I was just, when you wear something new for the first time, you kind of try to gauge what people's response is when you wear it, if you're like me and you care about what other people think. But I found that when I wore this, no one really said anything about it. I do want to say that I thought that the collar was a bit plain. Don't ask me why. And so I added these beautiful little gold bees on the collar of my coat. And I did that because I just thought it gave it a little something extra. And these bee brooches were actually gifted to me by Talisha for my birthday. And on one of them, there is a gold pearl. And on the other one, there is a white pearl. And it's completely encrusted in like faux diamonds or cubic zirconium type diamonds. They're just beautiful little brooches, and I think they're fantastic for pairing with this coat. Now we are back in a season of wearing mixed metals, so even if I am wearing silver jewelry, I still think that it will look really nice with these brooches, and I probably won't take them off because I like the way they look so much. So I will leave them on all the time. I want to point out something about the sleeve. There are these awesome bands on the sleeves, and I think they are very cute the way they look, but they don't serve a function. So you may want to omit this. It's totally up to you. If you like the style of it, you like the way it looks, then leave it on. But I did find that before giving my coat one final press, I was frustrated because the sleeve comes out very easily out of this cuff. Now, my shirt's red, so it might be hard to see that. Now, is it a big deal? No, because once your arm's in it, you can kind of push it back in place and it'll stay where it's supposed to be. But if you do want to keep this, but that is something that would annoy you, I have seen some of my sewing friends on Instagram attach a button or something in order to keep it where it is. You could probably just do an invisible stitch there to keep that band in place. It's not a big deal, but I thought I'd point it out. It was more of an irritant when I was constructing the jacket than it is now that it's completed and I've been wearing it. It does stay placed once my body is in the jacket, but if you think it might bother you that it's not secured on one side, you can either do a little stitch on there or add a button or a brooch or something to keep it in place. But it is a very beautiful jacket. And it is very comfortable to wear. This fabric is so soft and cozy. I actually wore this coat to the movies and it was just so cozy. I had to fight myself to not fall asleep in that movie. But it's just a very nice, comfortable coat that I can definitely see myself getting a lot of wear out of. I really enjoyed sewing up this pattern. It is a very easy pattern to follow in my opinion. And I think it could be made out of so many different lovely fabrics. Now the recommendations for fabric on this pattern are tweed wool blends, gabardines, and cotton blends. Obviously my jacket is none of those options and it still came out really nice. And the lining is polyester as the recommendation, and mine is a charmeuse silk, which is polyester. Anyway, I could definitely see myself making this out of a non-wool tweed. That would be kind of cool. But then also, I thought it might be cool to make this out of a chino fabric so that it would be more of a trench style jacket. Especially with these awesome little bands on the sleeves, I think that that would fit the style really nicely. I've seen some hacks to this pattern on Instagram where people have created welt pockets, and that looks really nice and clean. However, I don't mind, and I actually enjoy the side seam pockets. I don't know who it is on Instagram, but there is someone that made a gray version of this coat that I saw at one point that did some very beautiful belt loops that were actually hidden in the stitching. It's kind of done almost like a welt pocket, and I think that looks so clean and nice. For this particular pattern, you actually stitch the belt loops right on top of the exterior of the jacket, and it just doesn't look as professional or clean in my opinion. Now I am probably being a bit picky, but even when I make jeans, I hate the way that looks when I top stitch the top of the belt loops down. I don't know if that's a weird thing to say, but that's how this is constructed for these belt loops, and there are much cleaner, nicer ways to create belt loops on jackets. So if you are someone who prefers a more professional looking belt loop, then you might want to take a look at Instagram to see the example that I'm talking about. And all you have to do is in the search engine type in hashtag ME2001, and all the versions that are already created on Instagram will pop up. And there's a little clip of someone who has done that, and it just looks so nice. So anyway, other than that, I would say that this is a beautiful, beautiful jacket. I think it's a fantastic pattern, and I highly recommend it to those of you that want to make an oversized coat this winter. Now, I haven't taken pictures as of this moment in this jacket yet, but I will take some pictures and insert them right here in this video so that you can see what this looks like. I am going to take it off of my new dress form, which is absolutely fabulous and actually has my exact measurements. I'm so excited about that. I'm going to take it off of her, even though this is pretty much how it's going to look on my body. And I'm going to put it on myself just so that you can see how long the jacket hangs on my body. And you'll be able to see how well it fits. And keep in mind, I do have on a hooded sweatshirt. So there is that. I'm going to push her back a bit. And it's kind of hard to see, but the jacket is not too far from my ankles. It's a very, very long jacket. And the funny thing is I considered actually shortening the jacket, especially since I had made the accident or error with the lining. And my husband said, no, don't do it. It looks super cool. So, or maybe he didn't use super cool. That's more my wording. But he was like, it looks cool. Don't shorten it. And I think in his mind, that's what made it kind of look unique, is that it was a very, very long coat on me. And so this is what it looks like. And I'll move my hair and hood so you can see the back a little better. And as you can see too, my hood is red also, so it might kind of change the way it looks on me. But it is a very cool jacket, and I find myself wearing it casually over sweats. Like I would wear some really cool high top sneakers with this and be out the door if I had somewhere to go today, okay? And I would feel very confident and cute. But also you can dress it up and wear it over really nice clothes as well. So this is the coat. I love it so much. The pockets are nice and deep and perfect for my big hands. And I definitely recommend this pattern. If you enjoyed this video, please do give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a fantastic day and a wonderful week. Talk to you soon. Bye.